After all the research I do throughout the week, when it's time for me to compile my rankings on Thursday, I normally feel pretty confident in what I'm putting out. But this week, as I sat there staring at the screen for the third straight hour trying to figure out whether or not I had guys in the correct order, I finally just said to myself, holy cow, this week is going to suck. Yo, what is going on, Headliner Nation? I tell you what, the running back situation this week completely threw me for a loop. And when I took a look at the rankings that I put together, it took quite a bit of time for me to really feel confident in what I was tossing out there. Between missing some of our top performers this week, guys that are currently banged up, when I started recording this, there were 8 running backs in my top 30 listed as questionable currently. And a few of our top options having tough matchups this week, the range of outcomes this week is one of the widest that I've seen for the running back position so far in 2023. But let's go ahead and dive into my top 30, and then I have a few guys just on the outside looking in, and we'll see how many of these guys can step up and help you get you through the week and moving towards a fantasy playoff spot. Well, since we have no Christian McCaffrey this week, Alvin Kamara is going to slide up to spot number 1. It's really no surprise given the amount of work that he is getting in the passing game that Alvin Kamara would be ranked this high. And number 2, Saquon Barkley going up against Las Vegas. Las Vegas just got absolutely smashed by Jahmyr Gibbs and the Detroit Lions on Monday Night Football. Saquon Barkley, knowing that he's going to be the main producer in the offense this week, whether they end up going with a different quarterback or Daniel Jones is able to make his way back, Saquon Barkley is going to be leaned on quite a bit. At number 3 and number 4, we have 2 guys from the same matchup on Monday Night Football, Austin Ekeler and Breece Hall. For Austin Ekeler going up against the New York Jets, the Jets currently rank 31st against the run in the NFL. And we haven't really seen Austin Ekeler get going on the ground since he came back from his injury, but this could definitely be a great opportunity for him to do that, plus continue to add to that awesome receiving total that we saw from last week. And as far as Breece Hall goes, his matchup is a little bit more different because when you look at the Los Angeles Chargers, they're currently ranked 6th against the run in the NFL, but they give up the 8th most fantasy points to the running back position. And that is because they give up a ton of receiving yards and touchdowns to running back, an area that Breece Hall absolutely can excel in. As of this recording, Jonathan Taylor is not listed on the injury report. And it's very odd this past week that he absolutely tore it up in the first half and then didn't do anything in the second half. Whether that was for design or whether or not it was because Jonathan Taylor was banged up, this week going up against Carolina, currently ranked 30th against the run and allowing the 2nd most fantasy points to the running back position, Jonathan Taylor should still be in line for a pretty decent workload and high upside with some explosive plays. New head coach, new quarterback, new offensive coordinator, maybe a new look completely on offense. And that should actually help Josh Jacobs this week going up against the New York Giants, currently ranked 24th against the run. Now, the Giants have kind of been let off the hook, a couple of teams recently who just didn't want to run the football against them. And because of that, it makes their numbers actually look a little bit better. But this week, I expect a heavy dose of Josh Jacobs, who looked fairly decent at times last week against a stout Detroit defense. And now this is a great opportunity to get him going once again. Bijan Robinson, another running back with another new quarterback this week, and he's going to be going up against Minnesota, who does fairly decent going up against the run. Right now, Minnesota allows the 4th fewest fantasy points to the position, even though they're ranked 13th against the run. However, when you take a look at Taylor Heinicke, who will be taking over at quarterback this week, in the past when he has been the starter in Washington, he has looked to target his running backs quite a bit out of the backfield. Bijan Robinson seeing one of the highest route run rates of any running back in the NFL right now. And even if on the ground he's held up a little bit, through the air, he should still make a pretty decent impact. Even though Kansas City allows the 9th fewest fantasy points to the running back position, we have seen him fall a few spots over the last couple of weeks in terms of what they do against the run, now ranked 19th against the run in the NFL. We know Raheem Mostert has the explosiveness to take home a big play from anywhere on the field, and that attributes to ranking him 8 8th, even though at this point in a shootout, we might see a little bit less volume than what we would like. But we also know when they get in the red zone, Raheem Mostert is looked at quite a bit. So even if the touches aren't there this week, hopefully the touchdown and the big plays are. DeAndre Swift really hasn't reached his ceiling in a few weeks now, but maybe going up against Dallas, that would be an opportunity to kind of get him going again. Dallas's defense has been good this year, but they are currently ranked 18th against the run. They've been very mediocre, even though they've been pretty good against the pass. For DeAndre Swift this week, he still continues to average around 18 touches per game and 88 total yards per game. He's also been a top 24 running back in 75% of his games played this year and averages just over 13 fantasy points. Even though he hasn't reached a ceiling that we would like, he has still been a very good bet given the amount of touches he gets. For Isaiah Pacheco, I would love to go higher with him this week, but we've already seen it in a couple of matchups recently where if Kansas City gets in a neutral or negative game script, they're just not running the football as much as we would like to see. Pacheco is still averaging 16 touches per game right now, and Miami's ranked 17th against the run. But if this gets into a huge shootout, which it very likely could, when you take a look at Isaiah Pacheco's upside this week, it just isn't as high as we would like. Now, this ranking for Derrick Henry might actually seem a little bit on the lower side, and I would like to go higher with Derrick Henry, but I am interested in seeing how this offense will work with Will Levis under center once again. Pittsburgh is ranked 28th against the run, so they have not been good stopping running backs so far this year, but we are coming off a short week for Derrick Henry, and I'm trying to take that into account and expect that Tyjae Spears will probably see maybe a few more touches in this game than what he has as of recent. If Derrick Henry hits a big play or scores a touchdown, he's definitely got top 5 potential, and honestly, his ceiling is top 5 for me as well this week, but I'm trying to take a look at what his floor could be, and knowing once again that Will Levis is only in his second game and is probably going to struggle a little bit more this week against Pittsburgh than he did last week, I just want to bake all of that into account and give Derrick Henry what I feel is a very fair ranking, because you know what? At number 11, he would be starting for you anyway. I already talked about Jonathan Taylor and a lot of the pros for him facing Carolina this week, and for Zach Moss, a lot of those pros are also in effect for him as well. I fully believe both of these guys can be top 12 running backs this week. We've seen them both coexist over the last few weeks, and if both of them can score touchdowns, they absolutely have the opportunity to be right up here inside the top 12. I'm going to bank on Indianapolis using the ground game going up against Carolina, and Moss and Taylor both having fantastic weeks. Tony Pollard at number 13 has not shown his ceiling at all this season, and now he's getting the number 1 run defense in all of football. Philadelphia ranked number 1 against the run and allowing the few fantasy points to the position. Really, the biggest thing with Tony Pollard this week is that we have to hope that he gets some looks in the passing game. If he doesn't, then his ranking of 13 could fall even lower, and I could absolutely see Tony Pollard finishing outside the top 15. There's so much risk with him this week that you really have to be careful, but in the same aspect, you probably don't have a choice given what we have currently available for us at running back. Joe Mixon coming off arguably his best game of the season, and I'm a little bit lower on him this week than what I would like to be going up against Buffalo, but we haven't seen consistently high performances for him, and that's one of the reasons why I am keeping him a little bit lower. Buffalo currently ranked 22nd against the run in the NFL, and because of that, Mixon does have a really decent floor this week. But if Cincinnati finds themselves battling back and forth, then we definitely will see more of a passing game from Cincinnati than a running game. It kills me to have Kenneth Walker this low going up against Baltimore this week, but given the fact that he is a little banged up right now and this is a tough matchup, definitely could see him not getting the type of volume that we would like. Now, hopefully in the few carries that he does potentially get this week, he does find himself being a little bit more efficient than what other running backs have been against Baltimore this season, but we really need to get Kenneth Walker 100% healthy, and I think Seattle agrees with you. So don't be surprised if we see a little bit more of Zach Charbonnet this week, even if it's less than what we saw last week. At number 16, Rachaad White, and really Rachaad White is being propped up right now by his work in the passing game. And over the last couple of weeks, he has seen his targets almost double compared to the beginning of the season. And really for Rachaad White owners in fantasy, that's what you have to have because he sucks on the ground. The guy is averaging 3.3 yards per carry right now. And even though he's going up against Houston, which is a little bit of an easier matchup, he's got to have the numbers through the air to reach the upside that you need to help you win your week. James Cook at number 17 this week going up against Cincinnati, who has allowed the 4th most rushing yards this season. And this would be a really great spot for James Cook to get moving. But like I mentioned about Joe Mixon, while it is a decent matchup on the ground, there is a possibility that we see a whole lot of passing in this game. And if that happens, it absolutely kills his upside. Now, a lot of people are going to be scared about James Cook because Leonard Fournette was signed. But even if Leonard Fournette is active for this week, which it still remains to be seen if he will be, he's not taking enough touches away from James Cook to make James Cook super irrelevant. Now, does the workload from Leonard Fournette give us a little bit of a peek into what could happen the rest of the season? Absolutely it could, but for now we're still going to be running James Cook out there. At number 18, Jerome Ford, and you all know how I feel about this guy, but I have him 7 spots higher than the consensus this week, which once again shows you all that I'm willing to put some of those feelings aside, and when a matchup bodes well for a player, I'll still absolutely buy into it. And honestly, Jerome Ford would have been a little bit higher for me this week if it wasn't the fact that they saw a triple split at the running back position last week. Now, Jerome Ford's ankle could still be bothering him a little bit. We did see a better workload in the second half last week for him than the first half. We know that Jerome Ford, in terms of efficiency, is not very good. He's way too reliant on big plays to be consistently fantasy viable for us. However, going up against Arizona, who struggles against the run, it is definitely within the realm of possibility that he sees at least a couple of big plays this week, allowing him to give you some more consistent yards. Chuba Hubbard at number 19 going up against Indianapolis, and Chuba Hubbard has taken over as the starter in this offense. Last week absolutely showed it in terms of the numbers for his snap percentage. And going up against Indianapolis, currently ranked 23rd against the run and allowing the 4th most fantasy points to the running back position. Chuba Hubbard definitely has the ability to show out on the ground and through the air, helping you reach a pretty decent upside. However, if Carolina falls behind, his ceiling comes down dramatically. At number 20, Darrell Henderson Jr. has a really nice matchup this week going up against Green Bay, currently ranked 27th against the run and allowing the 5th most fantasy points to the running back position. Now, Darrell Henderson, who had been up and down between the practice squad over the last couple of weeks, was officially signed to the 53-man roster just a couple of days ago. What does that signify? It signifies that they like him as their starter right now. And given the fact that we're probably only a couple of weeks away from Kyren Williams starting to make his return, signing Darrell Henderson means to me that they are absolutely comfortable with continuing to roll him out there as the guy. And someone like Royce Freeman will continue to see some touches as well, but will not see the amount of volume that Darrell Henderson sees. Gus Edwards at number 21 has been absolutely on fire the last couple of weeks, but gets a much tougher matchup this week going up against Seattle, but he's seeing more than enough touches on the ground right now to still see a pretty decent floor right around this 21 mark, even if his ceiling isn't there. Kareem Hunt at number 22. Now, I've got him a little bit lower than Jerome Ford this week because I do believe Jerome Ford has a little bit more upside with his big playability going up against his Arizona defense. While I would argue the fact, however, that Kareem Hunt is a little bit safer given the amount of work that he gets in the red zone. Kareem Hunt has more touchdown upside than Jerome Ford this week, giving him a little bit of a safer floor given where he is used, but Jerome Ford to me will still have a little bit more upside than him. Ramondre Stevenson at number 23 going up against Washington. Now, I had him listed in red in my running back video, and I am willing to bump him up to yellow now, given the fact that Washington traded their top 2 defensive linemen. But I'm still not willing to go super high because even with that being said, the usage of Ramondre Stevenson in better matchups has still been perplexing this season, and I really don't know what we're going to get from him this week. Given the fact that for running backs in week 9, we don't have a ton of options, you're probably playing Ramondre Stevenson anyway, and we'll just hope his floor is pretty decent this week, even though we haven't seen any ceiling for a majority of the year. Aaron Jones going up against the LA Rams. The Rams are currently ranked 20th against the run. However, they allow the 6th fewest fantasy points to the position. Aaron Jones still doesn't seem to be 100% right now and is listed as questionable again this week. So as of now, we have to just keep him lower in the rankings. Even if you are playing him, you know his ceiling isn't nearly as high as we would like it to be. The New England Patriots allow the 9th fewest rushing yards right now on the season, and Brian Robinson is down at number 25 for me this week. I'd love to go higher with him, but I don't really know how they game plan for Brian Robinson on a weekly basis in Washington. A lot of the times it feels like they just outsmart themselves in the game plan, and Eric Bieniemy tries to make Sam Howell look like Patrick Mahomes. Going up against New England, it would probably be a pretty good idea to pound the football at them to start and then hit them through the air a majority of the game afterwards. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's the other way around, and seeing Brian Robinson get 14 or 15 carries this week is probably out of the equation, as of right now he's only averaging 13 touches per game. We have to hope for a touchdown. Atlanta right now allows the 3rd fewest fantasy points to the running back position, and given the fact that we're going to have a rookie quarterback under center this week, yeah, Alexander Mattison may see the bulk of the touches, but I really don't expect him to be very efficient. This is going to be a tough defensive front to run against. Cam Akers we'll talk about in just a minute as well, but for those two, they're probably going to be seemingly pretty split in carries, but it doesn't feel like Minnesota is ready to walk away from Alexander Mattison as the starter just yet. Jaylen Warren at number 27. This is a guy that has seen his targets decrease over the last few weeks, but going up against Tennessee this week on Thursday Night Football, if Pittsburgh is playing from a negative game script, there is a possibility that we'll see him on the field a little bit more than Najee Harris. Emari Demercado gets the number 1 overall defense in football this week. It's going to be a really tough matchup for him, and he's going to have a rookie quarterback under center. Probably means that the defense is going to key on the run a little bit more than what they would like, and because of that, Emari Demercado is really going to have to hit a ceiling if he gets work in the passing game this week, but it's just super risky to hope for. Roschon Johnson, I'm going to slide him up into the top 30 this week above D'Onta Foreman. Going up against New Orleans, it's going to be a tough matchup on the ground, and I expect New Orleans to play from a positive game script in this matchup, meaning that Roschon Johnson is going to make his work in the passing game, and hopefully now a week after coming back from that concussion, he's able to get back on the field a little bit more often and see more volume. Najee Harris at number 30 going up against Tennessee. I just don't love the opportunity for Najee Harris. Now, it wouldn't surprise me either if they don't try to run the football a little bit more this week, given that Kenny Pickett is banged up. But if Najee Harris doesn't score a touchdown, there's no way he's finishing inside the top 25. All right, I got a few guys on the outside looking in this week, and we're going to go ahead and fly through them in case anyone has questions. D'Onta Foreman at number 31. Really, it's because the possibility of negative game script. I just feel like Roschon Johnson is going to get a few more looks in the passing game, and Foreman will kind of be stuck on the ground. Dameon Pierce at number 32, along with Devin Singletary. I'm going to put these guys back to back right now because it's basically going to be a split backfield and a super tough matchup. Honestly, I don't want to play either of these guys this week. If I absolutely had to key in on one of them, though, it would not surprise me if Devin Singletary now sees more touches than Pierce. I have trouble going any higher than Royce Freeman right now because I do fully believe that Darrell Henderson will be the guy this week. He'll see the majority of the workload and be the starter, which is going to leave Royce Freeman looking to try and get a couple of red zone touches. If he does and he scores a touchdown, absolutely could be higher, but I don't think the volume is enough to put him inside the top 30. Cam Akers, I just don't think has taken over for Alexander Mattison as the starter just yet. And it doesn't mean that I agree with that. It just means it looks like the Vikings are really looking to get Alexander Mattison going still and don't want to give up on him just yet. Now, if Mattison comes up and absolutely stinks to start the game, then we will see more Cam Akers, but it really just depends on how much more it is and given the tough matchup, if it's really worth the upside. Tyjae Spears on Thursday Night Football, I'm not willing to put him inside my top 30 because outside of really 2 performances this year, he hasn't been inside the top 30 running backs. I expect a heavy dose of Derrick Henry this week, with Tyjae Spears maybe spelling him a little bit more than what we've seen in recent weeks. But again, seeing Tyjae Spears on the field doesn't necessarily just equal fantasy points, and the only way that Tyjae Spears makes it into the top 30 is if Pittsburgh puts Tennessee in a negative game script. And I'm going to throw Zach Charbonnet here in at the very end just to discuss him because I know I'm going to get some questions on him. As of right now, Kenneth Walker is not listed on the injury report, so he might be back to a full go at this point, which would be great for Kenneth Walker, but I think Seattle's going to want to keep him healthy for the end of the season run. So I don't expect him to go right back to 20 plus touches in this game going up against Baltimore, which means Zach Charbonnet will probably see a few more touches than what he has this season, even it is a few less than what it was last week. All right, there you go, Headliner Nation. Hopefully these top 30 rankings plus a few extra was more than enough to help you out this week and help you set your lineup if you're missing any studs or dealing with injuries. Hit that like button for me. Subscribe if you're new here to the channel, and appreciate you all tuning into our rankings episode this week. Peace out, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you all on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.